guys, welcome back to VectorSigma.info. Dan here. I said I would start doing some videos about the Extra Life Titan 1 format. And I realized I could do this a couple different ways, but what I want to do is I kind of want to put people in the mindset of how to approach a new format and how something like this particular format, where it looks brand new and it looks like it doesn't have any ground floor work to be looked at, and it could be a little bit overwhelming for certain players. But what I want to do is, and I want to express, is the fact that there is actually some groundwork for this floor, for this format, and it's really cool and it's really interesting because it's not something that you would necessarily think of, and it's a way to approach these things. So what's really cool about the idea of new formats in this game is the idea of testing out different ways to play the game. So that's exactly what Titan 1 is. Titan 1 it's an idea. It's an idea of how can we create a different format that people can enjoy a little bit more, and we can see the bot lineups be a little bit more diverse. And with those bot limits being a little more diverse, maybe there's a way to make battle decks the same. And I that's exactly what happens here, is that a lot of the top contenders, since our first event in May, all the way till now, and then even events from the Chrono Cup and the Freedom Cup and Matrix Leadership, so like all of these events, they've all have really been taken over by multiple Titan decks. But that's the thing. That's where this information comes in. That's where we can start looking and start finding some of our information of how you would approach this format. And that's what's cool, because we actually do have information here. So I want to just give a shout out one more time here to the event page here. This is it. Smash GG tournaments, Extra Life Titan 1 September. It's really simple to find. Link will be in the description. But the event is going to be 10 days from watching it today of release, and we have 10 days more of signups. I'm still looking forward to how everyone's going to be a part of this, and it's exciting, and I'll be streaming the entire thing all day. But with that, let's get into how I would approach this particular format and where I would gauge and try and understand some information that might not be that well thought of. So we're going to give a shout out to our friends at Fortress Maximus. They do an awesome job at covering all the tournaments and stuff like that, and they give us, this library of information here that, it's put on a web page and it's there, and maybe not everyone's always looking at it, especially less now than before, because we don't have, some grand event that we're really trying to look forward to. Like, we don't have PAX Unplugged, we don't have Gen Con, we don't none of these things, but all these events are, they're all 30 plus players. I mean, most of them on this particular page, they all have 30 plus players in these events, and it's a lot of information that, is very, very valuable, and it's very important to come back here when you need something like that. So with the new rule, with Titan 1, you can only have one Titan Master in your deck. So my first thought is, all right, well, why don't I go check out the other tournaments, and let me see if any of the decks from other older tournaments did have success with that idea already in mind. So if we look at the last Team PTSD, the Matrix, we know right here, right? So Fangry Bull, double, that's a double. We have Shadow Perceptor, that's a double. We have Sergeant Ka, which is Daring Escape, which is banned, so that doesn't matter. Megatron Fangry, double. Fangry Bull, double. Shadow Perceptor, double. Carquake, double. And, we have Springer Fangry. Let's take a look at that one. Alright, so we have a Springer, we have a Fangry with Skytracker, Kreb, and Radiant. Now, we have two Conversions Engines here, and that card's banned in the format also, but the rest of the deck plays just as an aggro orange deck. So this is something that, you could try. It made top 8 in a 38 or 39 person tournament event, I believe it was, with this lineup. And yes, it has Peace Through Tyrannies, and it has Conversions Engines, which is fine. Those cards are obviously very strong, but you have to remember that all the other decks on top are also losing the ability to play Peace Through Tyranny. So when you look at something like this and you're like, all right, well, this is basically just a big orange deck that has a lot of fun with Springer and gets to play a bunch of stuff. And I think that's an interesting concept for the format. And once again, shout out to Dan Gallus. He top aided this large event with this pretty unique deck. And that was one of the first ones that really caught my eye. And there was a bunch of others. So let's go back over to Christian Young. All right, so Christian Young won an event with Fortress Maximus. Now, this is a very interesting list. This is a 46 card deck, and it was very, very well built on the Cerebros effect. And Fortress Maximus is legal in Titan 1, and this one, a 32 person event. It was geared up to the 9 and ready to go and had everything that was possibly legal, and he doesn't play any of the cards that are banned in the format. So like this deck, you might very easily just be able to take this deck and port it right into the format and say, all right, play me. I already know that this deck is 100% proven. It won an event, won a bigger event. And I think that's really cool. I think it's just another piece of information that, like, if you wanted to take it and you wanted to say, man, I don't have enough time to figure out the format, yada yada. Well, this is just another way. It's another way to go and look at what has succeeded. So let's keep going. And the next deck, not that one, is Pounce Night Racer. Now, there's a couple different variants of this Perceptor Pounce or Perceptor Night Racer idea here. And this is the first iteration of it where, you have Perceptor, you have Pounce, you have Night Racer, and then you get stealth missions, so you get some extra heroic resolves. But this is another prime example here. Like, this deck was a top 8 of the same event that the Fortress Maximus won. And there's other versions of this deck that was in the Corona Cups as well, where there was, 2 people that top 8 it with this, not this exact same 40 card list or same 50 card list, but the same lineup and the same concept and the same idea that this could just be another easy, all right, well, if I want to play blue and I want to play control, like, I can go and I can look at these lists that look like this, and you can compare and contrast. Like I said, there was 2 others in the former Corona Cup builds where I think it was Stefan and Kai who were each playing a list that looks similar to this. But you could go and you could, compare thoughts. Like, oh, this deck clearly worked in a bigger tournament and it's already proven success, and it doesn't break any of those other rules that are now in place because you only have one Titan Master. So that's, just another thing to go and look for and see why it succeeded and understand it. And then, if you have to make a decision and you have to make some changes to make it work in the format, then you can just go from there. Our next, that one just keeps coming up. And next is this one. So this just recently. Now this was our post rotation, which doesn't have Peace Through Tyranny in it, and a lot of the other cards. Now, granted, like cards like Grenade Launcher and Bashing Shield and all those things, they're legal in the Titan 1 format, but Peace Through Tyranny still isn't. Now, this deck just finished second place in the format, and its loss was to a swap heads deck, which is definitely not in the format. So this is another prime example of a deck that you could go and look at, and you can compare and contrast with some of the other Perceptor Night Racer decks and see why this one worked and how it could work in the new meta. And I think this is a really good concept to keep seeing and going forward. And then just to go back and look at some of the older stuff, like for the non-Titan decks from Siege 2, obviously, you had Shockwave, you had Galaxy Prime, and you had Octone, you had Jetfire. Now, Jetfire is probably still the weakest of that bunch now, just because, the built-in tough and stuff like that's not really great when everyone's just, like, running, like, Pierce 8, Pierce 10. And what you gain from Jetfire isn't really that great, but, the idea that, Shockwave can come in and continuously take away your opponent's plays, and then Galaxy Prime can easily build himself up to being some 33 health monster or whatever the hell he gets to. And the same thing with Octone, with being able to spread the damage, kind of like a much bigger version of a Horrible would be. But, obviously there's restraints there, but it's still an idea that, like, those type of characters that you can get extra value of every turn can start to make a difference. So when you start seeing deck lists like this with Major Shockwave, it really introduces the idea that, like, okay, well, maybe I don't need a Titan at all, and maybe I can go back to some of these core concepts and stuff like that worked out. And like I said, this was just like, it was just like a starter point of like where I would go to find resources. Like I said, it's a brand new format, but even though it's a brand new format, it doesn't mean that there isn't some information out there that you can go and look and you can use. Like I said, you can go and this, go to Fortress Maximus and you can just go to this page, and there's all these deck lists from all over. There's a Blaster Aggro deck. I imagine that doesn't have any Titan Masters in it. There's, like I said, you have 2 Perceptor Pounces here with Stefan and Kai from there, and if you scroll down, there's a little bit more information, not too much, but these are all that, and Chrome Dome Fang, Shockwave, here's another Shockwave, here's a General Optimist, so some of these, like I said, they're these from May up, they all have TMA in them. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and hopefully soon our most recent event that we just did, which is still some information there. Like I said, you can go and you can compare and contrast, and you can find out some ideas of where to start. And let's be honest here. Like if we look at this Fangry Bull deck, right? All right, so this Fangry Bull deck, played by David Burgos, he won the Team PTSD event. I mean, in all honesty, like you could look at this deck and be like, all right, yes, Fangry's great, yes, Harble's great, but I could remove one of them, insert a 7-star character with Bold. There's plenty of options there. Let's be honest. Lionizer, Sky Shadow Plane. The list goes on. Barrage. Like you could easily just take a Fangry out or take a Horrible out and just be a Bold deck and like just move forward. And that's something that you could easily just look at and contrast and do. And then the Sky Shadow decks are obviously the different ones here. So like you have Sky Shadow and you have Perceptor. That can't happen anymore. But what it could be is that you could just play Sky Shadow and you could pick up a 10-star. There are plenty of 10-star options that you could work with. You have Windsweeper for one. You can go back in time and play some of the older 10-star characters. You definitely have the options to try and make Sky Shadow work without an extra character like that, and I think that'll be intriguing if someone can find what the quote best Sky Shadow deck is, because he's still probably the best character in the format. He might just not have the partners anymore, but hey, there's room to find those things, and that's really interesting. If we go and we look, there was another one that I wanted to. So Quake's another one, right? So Quake is obviously this dominant deck. You have 6 characters in play, but you can kind of still do that. You can play Quake at 11 and play a patrol with him, and you can get damage that way. No, it's not the same. No, there is obviously a difference, and I understand all those things, but the point is that you can still play Quake in a different form, and he could probably still be a powerhouse. So I just really, really wanted to point those things out and start pointing people in direction, in case you were struggling to see where you can go and where to start. Like I said, I think all of these things are very, very possible, and I think it's really interesting to see where people go and how they adapt to a new rule and a new set. But that's going to be it for today. Like I said, once again, we're running it on September 19th and 20th. That's the plan, and I'm really looking forward to hosting it all day and looking forward to getting to stream it and see what this new format has to bring. All right, thanks again, guys, and I'm looking forward to next weekend. See ya.